Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. This is going to be a fun episode with my friend Frank Sanders of Alaskan Trophy Outfitters. And I want to thank him for his friendship. I also want to thank him for the hunt Darn I had for mountain goat last late summer. Dar ended up getting a mountain goat, and we had a really fun adventure. And it's always fun to talk to Frank about some of the experiences he's had and guiding in Alaska for 25 years and hearing about some of the brown bear hunts and some of the moose hunts and all of the different adventures. You can check out his website at alaskatrophy.outfitters.com, and I look forward to that. Before we get into the episode, I want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com Insider and remind you guys that you can get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card if you sign up now by using the J Scott promo code. And all you've got to do is go to GoHunt.com /J Scott. And you can follow the prompts from there, and that's going to get you $50 in that Go Hunt gear shop. And also want to remind you that Go Hunt is doing a giveaway, and that giveaway is basically 12 days of insider giveaway. There'll be 78 winners this month with a total value of $16,500 in gear being shelled out or dished out. You've got to be an insider member to win, and you can check out this giveaway schedule December 11th. Pair of Vortex binoculars. On the 12th, 2 insider members will win a Garmin Montana 610 GPS. The 13th, 3 insider members will win an MSR fly tent, fly light tent, and then 4 winners, 5 winners, 6 winners. In other words, you get all the way to the 10th of December, or excuse me, the 10th of December, there'll be 10 winners of 10 Black Diamond Storm headlamps. They're giving away Yeti coolers. They're giving away Sunto Core all black knives, sleeping bags, backpacks, all kinds of stuff. You got to be an insider member to win this gear. I want to thank Go Hunt for their sponsorship. They've been with me from the beginning of this podcast, and we've got a great relationship with Lorenzo Sartini and Chris Porter over there. They've got a great staff with Brady Miller and Brandon and Trail Kreitzer and the rest of the group. But check them out. Go on gohunt.com /J Scott. If you want to research all of the Western states, they have the best resource for all of the different animals that you want to hunt in each state and breaking down the draw odds and harvest statistics and data and such. So check them out. Also, Kuyu Ultralight Hunting. Jason Harrison, thank you for your sponsorship of this podcast. Cheston Davis over at phonescope.com. You can use the JScott16 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount on any of the PhoneScope products. That's what I digiscope. All of the videos that you see on my Instagram, those are all shot with a PhoneScope digiscoping adapter. You get a 10% discount if you use the JScott16 promo code. And then last but not least, the Outdoorsman's, the Optics Authority, Cody Nelson and his group there in Arizona. The Optics Authority, use the JScott promo code when you call in or on the website, and you're going to get a 10% discount. The phone number there is 1-800-291-8065. I always appreciate having Cody on the podcast and bringing his expertise and knowledge on optics and glassing and hunting gear to the podcast. And guys, really appreciate it. Record numbers the last couple months. It's totally I'm totally indebted to you guys for being so loyal. I get emails every day, direct messages every day, and I just really appreciate the interaction I have with you guys. If you'd like to send me an email, you can do so at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You can follow along our other adventures on my Instagram account, jscottoutdoors, and you can send me a direct message there. So love seeing your videos, love seeing your pictures of successful hunts, and love getting any questions or comments. Feel free to reach out there. And let's get right into this episode with Frank Sanders. And I actually got to add one more thing to all you U of A Wildcat fans out there. Get a whole year now, 360 some days of getting to rib every single one of my U of A Wildcat buddies that the Sun Devils put a whooping on you. And it's not always the case that I can do that, but certainly we won the game, and so I've got a year's worth of bragging rights, and we'll see what this new coach can do. Four out of 6 wins in the U of A with Todd Graham. I was kind of a little bit suspect of the move, but anyway, I know you guys are probably biting your lip right now listening to me give it to you, but it's not often that the Sun Devils get to that I get to brag. But Brian Rimza and Eric Forrest and Ryan Eustace and a bunch of you other knuckleheads, Chad Converse, you deserve it. You deserve every minute of ribbing that I can give you. So hope you guys are doing great. Let's get right to this episode, guys.
Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got my friend Frank Sanders out of Soldotna, Alaska. Frank owns and operates Alaska Trophy Outfitters, and Dar and I were fortunate to go this late summer with Frank's outfit and do some mountain goat hunting. And I want to have a good chat with Frank today. We've got the Alaska deadline, December 15th, to apply in Alaska. So, Frank, let's do some talking about Alaska. How you doing?
Good. Sounds good. It's right around the corner, so not too far out.
So, first and foremost, let's just get some of the specifics out of the way. So, in order to apply in Alaska, anybody can apply, but you have to have, I believe, a hunter safety card. But there's a ton of hunts that are not by in essence, you can just put in for it. Some you can draw with, relative, pretty easy, and some are harder than others. Why don't you kind of go through how the Alaska draw works?
Yeah, what it is obviously, there's multiple species that we have, like a lot of places. Some are open hunts, some are registration hunts, and then what we're speaking of right now, obviously, is the draw hunts. And the draw hunts, there are certain species, sheep, mountain goat, and grizzly bear, where most of the hunts now, and I think it's all of them, they've been changing it over the last couple of years, kind of tweaking it. What that requires is a person to have what they call a guide-client agreement. And so what that relates or translates to is, Jay Scott wants to go, hunting Kodiak brown bear. Well, what happened in the past is guys would put in for the hunt and draw a tag, and let's say, like my area only has 3 tags, and then they'd find out, hey, this isn't, a bargain basement hunt. These hunts are upwards of 20,000, if not plus, and they wouldn't use it. So what the state's done is required this guide-client agreement, and essentially what that means is, Jay wants to go, so he talked to Frank. Frank sent him the form. They fill it out. It's, no pun intended, it's an agreement between the two that says, hey, if Jay draws this tag, he's going to hunt with Frank. And so, like I said, that's now required. It hasn't been in the past, but it's now required for mountain goat. Last year was, I think, the first year, but it's required for mountain goat. It was required for sheep in one of our specialty units, 14C, for multiple years. And now it's actually, I think, all of our sheep areas for non-residents to apply. Now,
in essence, Frank, was it one of these deals where people were drawing and they realized how much the hunt cost, so they didn't even go? And it was almost the Game and Fish probably felt like they were taking opportunities away from guys that actually wanted to go. So they wanted to make it a little more formal, so that that there was some vested interest on both parties between the outfitter and the hunter, that so that the resource could actually be utilized.
Absolutely, and it came from the Game and Fish, and it also came from the guides, because, as I mentioned, my area has 3 tags, and so, and there's a couple of guys that hunt it. It's not an exclusive area, and so, when you've got a guy who can get a tag, or somebody draws a tag and doesn't use it, that's a pretty chunk of change, that we depend on. And so, like you said, it ensures that it gets used.
Okay, so tell me the animals that guys could just call you up and go hunt without a draw, and or it's a draw, but it's a very liberal draw where they could almost get a tag every year. Probably let's start there with some of your hunts that guys can just call up and immediately book.
Typically, what we've got a couple brown bear areas. My primary area on the Alaska Peninsula for brown bear, that's over-the-counter tag. What they've done there is they just limit the time frame. It's a small time frame every year. Black bear they can do. Moose, we do a very limited amount of moose hunts. We did 2 this year. And then as far as the draw stuff, there's not a ton in my personal units. Now, people need to understand that as a guide, we're allowed to hunt 3 specific areas in the state. And as far as the ones I have, there's not a lot of my draws that are really easy. Our mountain goat odds with this, I'll regress just a hair. Last year, they changed the application process where we could put in 6 choices, and we could put all 6 in one hunt. My mountain goat odds have definitely improved dramatically.
And that's where Star and I put in, you thought we had like a 20%, or maybe it was an 8 or 10% chance of draw, and it turned out because you were able to put all 6 choices in for us in that specific unit, you said they went up to like 70-some%.
Yeah, I think my memory serves me right, which it doesn't always. I think I got 8 tags for 11 applicants, and we hunted 7 of them. One guy was in a motorcycle accident, so obviously he couldn't make it. But yeah, in prior years, I'm putting in 10, 12 people and getting 2 hunters, maybe 3 hunters, and so yeah, it did go up significantly.
Now, do you think with the change last year, was how much of it was the other outfitters maybe hadn't caught on that you could apply all 6 in a specific unit? Or do you also think that it's one of those things that this year your odds for mountain goat will be much better as well? Like it's a change for your purposes for the good, or is it, do you think it was just a 1-year deal that slipped through the cracks?
No, what I think is with our area, and the reason I say this is because I've asked Fish and Game, and I hammer them, and I'm always asking questions. There's 32 tags for the one area that I hunt, the area where you guys were, and typically less than 50% of those people report hunting. It's mandatory to report, whether you hunted or not, whether you're successful, checking your mountain goat. And so what I think was happening is prior to this, being able to put 6 choices, we could do 3 choices, but like most any other state, it had to be 3 different units. And in my pea brain, what I think is people put in for obviously, the area they want first choice. They put in for, hey, I heard this is a good area choice. And being that it's only $5 to apply once you have your license, they would just throw a 3rd choice in there. And I think what happened is once they got it and they realized the cost and logistics of getting to actually where the goats are, it just, people didn't hunt. And so with that taking place, those same guys, now, whatever that first choice was prior, I think, obviously put in for that and put, all 6 choices in there.
Yeah.
So,
So in other words, you think the odds will still be pretty good if people want to go mountain goat hunting, if they contact you, pretty good chance they're going to draw.
I would say so, absolutely. They, because I've talked to other guides and they had similar experiences, and kind of true to the theory that I think is right, is that the areas that they had, the logistically tougher they were to get to, and the more they cost to get to, the better their odds of drawing. Because like I said, hunters looked at it, and that was typically what I think was their 3rd choice.
Yeah, and one thing that I thought was pretty neat about Alaska is the mandatory reporting, and And even, I think you were telling me that if you don't report, even if you didn't go hunt, if you don't report, I want to say there's a penalty you can't apply, or there might be a multi-year penalty. What's the scoop with that?
It is. It's if you do not report, they'll typically send you an email, let you know. They'll do what they can in their power to notify you. If you do not report, you're not eligible to apply. I want to say it's the following year. I don't know if it's anything after that or not, but I do know it's at least the following year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah.
Gotcha. Now, guys, I gotta bust your chops a little bit. So Dar and I went in with Joe
because you guys were the odd men. Everything went pretty good this year. Went off more or less without a hitch until of course you guys show up.
And we would argue that we probably should have warned you of that ahead of time. We heard you guys' plane, what we thought was you guys' plane coming in, and we had that huge weather that had come in, and then you guys, I think, were able to come in after that storm, and you guys banged them up pretty good in a different area. Didn't you guys kill 5 goats? Didn't you go 5 for 5 or something like that?
We did. We did the 3,
and a couple pretty good ones too.
Yeah, we, as you guys know, after your debacle there, we came in, and in a couple days there, we shot 3 really good billies. I want to say one was over 9 or 10 years old, 9.5 inches, heavy broom back. One was 9 3/8, and one was right at 9.5. All good heavy goats those first few days. And then on turnaround, we brought in a couple bow hunters, and one guy was a bow hunter, and he ended up, what did he get? He got about an 8.5 inch billy. And then his buddy, he shot a goat, I think on day 4. They got pretty beat up with weather. I got really lucky, being that I only went in for the one hunt because I was leaving to do a moose hunt. And but yeah, we killed some great goats for sure. Like I said,
it was an awesome experience going to Alaska. I had never been, and Dar and I had never been, and we were somewhat like a fish out of water coming straight from the desert, going there, but just had an unbelievable time. The scenery was fantastic. Just a really neat experience. I don't know if I told you, but when we got down to the shoreline there, kind of in that bay, and there were salmon tending boats or tender boats out there that we kept seeing and stuff, and you'd see salmon just you could glass down there and see salmon just jumping out there in the water. And we got down and we were hot, and we had like 3 hours or so until the plane was coming to pick us up, and it was just this nice sheltered cove that was all just kind of calm, and we were hot, and I'm like, man, we ought to just dive in here. And we're sitting there watching these salmon jump, and I said, Joe, are there ever any killer whales here? He's like, well, yeah, I wouldn't know why there wouldn't be. He goes, I don't know that I've seen them right here myself. And Dar and I are kind of sitting there, and like we're sweating and we're hot, and but it's not like waves crashing. It's like calm, like a lake. And I'm just looking out there. I'm like, man, it'd feel good to just swim around. Dar goes, I'm gonna pass. So make a long story short, we pass. The plane comes, picks us up, and we go taking off. And we just get in the air, and the pilot banks really hard and goes, look down, killer whale. And I mean, not more than about 150 yards offshore. Maybe it was further than that, but it seemed like not very far. Here's a killer whale, and probably a good thing we didn't go swimming. Right? Do you see orcas out there quite a bit, and around in those areas?
We really do, especially out in that area, all the way from from the point where you guys were, all the way to Seward. And obviously we shouldn't be swimming with them. But the other thing is that you see is a salmon shark, which is in the same family as the great white mako, and they're called the salmon shark because that's what they feed on. And So people have always joked about it, and I said, hey, once they see a picture, and they're like, that's a great white. I'm like, no, it's a salmon shark. They don't get the size that the great white does, but we've caught them fishing.
Enough to keep you
feet.
from swimming for sure.
Well, at least to keep me and Dar from swimming. I'm not sure about you.
The other thing that was there was a ton of jellyfish in the water too.
Yeah, that cove or that whole, not just that cove, that whole 6-7 mile bay. Just gets loaded with them, and I don't know what it is. We were in there this spring bear hunting, and it's really shallow at the end, so when the tide goes out, it might move at 600 yards, and it is just chock full, more so than I've ever seen anywhere else. And I don't know enough about it. I saw it on Prince of Wales back in the 90s. That's the only other time I've seen that many.
That's a good question to ask you. And I know we talked about it on our prior podcast last year. I think we did one in December before the draw. When did you start in Alaska? And give me a little bit of history on your love for Alaska. Once you got there, what made you stay, and you've been there now for 20-some plus years, right?
Yeah, I started in 1990. I went up in 1990, 1991, and I was working on Prince of Wales, and a friend of mine was doing the bear hunts, and invited me up, and obviously I loved it, and I took my 6 or 7 years in college, like all of us should, and while I was doing that, I went to work for right. Well, I bounced around a little bit, and but I went to school up in Oregon, and I was actually working for a company called Oregon Bow Company at the time, which turned into Horizon, which in turn turned into Bowtech. But, I was with them, and during that last change from Horizon to Bowtech, of course, the one that was successful, they changed hands again, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to Alaska. I'm going to see, my theory was, I'll try it. I'll see if it works. I had some property and a house, and I made my payments for a year, and I thought, what the heck? I don't ever want to look back and say, God, I wonder what would have, or, And so I loaded up a truck, my girlfriend, my dog, and we drove up, and that was 22 years ago now, I think. And so Alaska's, it's been good to me. It really has.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Frank, you're really known, or I should say, when it comes to Alaska, it comes to, your name and Alaska Trophy Outfitters, you're really known for your bears and your moose. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't do as many moose. The one area that we had where I started with another outfitter, we didn't lose it, but the predators really hammered it. And so, we've been picking up more and more on the mountain goats, the last 6-7 years, and kind of getting dialed in on them. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I say the last 10 years. And so, between the goats, the bears, and the moose, but in a nutshell, the answer to your question, the roundabout is, the brown bears are really my forte.
How was your season this year?
It was excellent. It really was. We hunted Kodiak. We hunted Kodiak in the spring. With the Alaska Peninsula, for those that aren't aware, we hunt spring of even years and fall of odd. And then Kodiak we hunt spring and fall of every year. But this year, so we just had the Kodiak hunts, and we got dealt some pretty crappy weather. But we had 2 guys. I think we shot a bear on day 5. And the second hunter, he stuck to his guns. He said he wanted a giant or nothing. And he passed up three nice bears, upper 8s, low 9s. And he ended up getting a shot on day 10 that, unfortunate for him, well, I shouldn't say unfortunate, but we got on 2 cameras, a scope cam and a regular video cam, he got a shot at a true, a slob. I don't say this very often, but it was a true 10-foot bear. And those are not common. That's your 400-inch bull. And, everybody says they saw him, but to really make that mark. And he got a shot on day 10 and missed twice. So that was kind of a bittersweet end. And then our peninsula hunts, they went really, really well. Really well.
So you have two different areas that you hunt the brown bears in, and the peninsula hunts went well. How many bears a year roughly do you guys shoot?
Between 4 and 6 typically. Some years.
Okay.
Even though I've got multiple camps, I don't fill every camp. And what we've got one camp that's in the mountains, and what it is stuff that drains inland towards Lake Iliamna to open September 20th. There's actually 3 camps up there. One that we use all the time. It's excellent. A second one is excellent. The problem is it's such a small airstrip, and the river changed a little bit that we could not get in there this year. I knew that prior to season, so I didn't book it. And so I did a moose brown bear combo hunt there. And the hunter, he shot a 65-inch bull, and then he did something that, knock on wood, will never happen again. We lost our first rifle bear. 73-yard shot. He knocked him over, but yeah, I don't know what happened.
On the bears, as far as looking at that situation, like, what would you do differently? Or, obviously he wasn't hit right, but is there an area that you hit him that, man, it's just you don't get him?
I would think that what I see happen more often than not is guys tend to shoot them farther forward. And as you well know, this is even stupid to say, they're a giant animal. And I tell guys, if you're going to err to anything, err to the back. A bear's lungs go back quite a ways. And then there's obviously his liver and everything. I think over the years, people have got that so ingrained in their head from a lot of the old timers and stuff, shoot him through the shoulder, break him down right there. I would rather a person shoot a little bit smaller caliber with a good bullet that they're accurate with. Because what I saw, when I first started this 20-something years ago, people shot with 4.16s, 4.58s, and they weren't very good shots typically. A lot of them were afraid of the gun. And so, as far as I care about accuracy, the biggest gun in the world doesn't do any good if you can't hit anything, and good bullets. So that's my...
For sure. A lot of these bears that you guys get, once you get them down, how many of them, can you get a vehicle or, Fargo or something like that too? Or how many of them is it just, the guides packing everything back with the hunter back to camp?
It's everything. Everything's on our back. Most all of our camps, with the exception of, I think, one, we can only land with a Super Cub. And so, for those who know what a Super Cub is, it's just a pilot and the hunter. We do the pilot guide, pilot hunter, and then, everything's on your back. As far as carrying it out.
Are most of those hunts, are you moving and glassing, recamp, setting your camp, or are you kind of setting a spy camp and then glassing and coming back to camp every day, and then just repeating that process, or do you actually have established camps that, set in there, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have established camps. What most all of our camps are, the exception of one, we have what we call quote-unquote cabin that is on some native land I lease. Everything else is wall tents. And so really with most of our bear hunts, with the exception of Kodiak, we do very, very, very little moving. We spend literally 90-95% of our time sitting on our rear end glassing. And these camps are, with the exception of a couple, are the same camps I started with, in '96 when I came back to Alaska. And so it can be incredibly mundane. but it works. You know, when it's all said and done, it works. And a lot of guys, I tell them that big bears are similar to big whitetails. You know, if you bump them once, you might see them again. You bump them twice, you're probably never going to see them again. And so when you go walking through some of this brush and alders to get from one spot to another, you know, everything you touch, everywhere you go, you know, you're just leaving sign. And so, you know, I tell my guys, hey, you know, bring good warm clothes, bring layering clothes, you know, be ready to glass. I always bring, you know, glassing pads and all that because we really don't move a lot at all.
Gotcha. Those bears, that's just in your blood. It's one of those things that gets in there and sounds like you just love it.
Right. I do. I mean, there's times where, like anything we love, you know, there's times where you want to hit point break, and you know, that's typically weather or just things not going, you know, as planned. But you know, knock on wood, you know, with the exception of that bear that was lost and another one that was missed, you know, I think I've only had one other hunter that hasn't had, you know, an opportunity to bear. Well, no, let me rephrase that. That chose, he was looking like my Kodiak guy. He was looking for a giant and passed up a few bears and, you know, never did see that giant that he wanted. So we've been...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What other hunts do you guys offer there?
Essentially, you know, we do the moose, obviously the brown bear. We do some black bear hunts, the mountain goat, and those are really only the 4 species that I do. We had a sheep area, and I did, you know, one hunt. That's all I would do for a couple of years there, and they changed it to a draw, and the draw odds are, no, they're frickin' tough. You know, the only time I still have guys that apply for it, but typically the guys that apply are guys that are putting in for something else, because you don't have to put up the money for any of the tags or license. You have to buy a non-resident hunting license, which is $160, and then you can apply. And something that I should probably mention, since we are talking about the draw, similar to Utah, when you buy a license here, Utah is good for 365 days. So, you know, if you buy it, you know, 10 days before the deadline, you can apply again the next year. Well, in Alaska, with the deadline being, you know, as we talked about here next week, you know, December 15th of 2017 for 2018, when a hunter, let's say a guy calls after this and says, hey, I want to apply, so we'll buy him a 2018 license. Well, he can use that same license to apply in December of 18 for 19. Now, if he draws in 19, he has to buy another license. But
right. So in essence, if he doesn't draw, though, he can get basically 2 for 1 in applying.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Now, Frank, you also you actually set up fishing trips as well. Talk a little bit about fishing, some of the charter trips and stuff that you do.
I used to, until 2016, I used to run salmon and halibut charters. I fished on the Kenai River, and then we fished the saltwater between Homer and the Nail Chick. But now I've sold my boats. I'm still doing the charters. What I do is I set it up. I've got, you know, guys that came up, like I had a group of guys, the goat hunters that actually, when I flew over you know, they came in and fished for 3 days. We fished halibut, we fished salmon, then we went to Seward, did a combo trip, and then we obviously flew out in the field. So I'm still doing the halibut trips. I can set up the salmon trips. I don't guide on the Kenai anymore. What I'm doing primarily now is guiding on fly-out trips. You know, fly-out for salmon. We do a combo trip where guys can catch salmon, trout. A couple of lakes have pike in them, you know, for people that are interested in pike. And so, you know, if anybody's interested in that, I can definitely help them out there, for sure.
Nice. One thing that's interesting, well, several things that are interesting about you. One thing that I really like is you love to hunt all sorts of animals, and you actually apply in almost every state, and you've got a lot of experience hunting all over. Other than some of those animals in Alaska, what are some of your favorite animals to hunt in the lower 48?
It'd be elk, hands down. Yeah,
Elk's your favorite?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you hit it on the head. I mean, I love to hunt. Whether mule deer, whitetails, antelope, whatever it is. But elk is, if you told me there was one animal, even in Alaska, anywhere, it'd still be elk.
Yeah, and you're sitting on a pile of points in Arizona. Do you have your eye on anything else, or are you on the brink of drawing, any other tags in Nevada or New Mexico or anything?
Yeah, I've got 16 or 17 points in Nevada. Got quite a few deer and elk in Colorado. Got a bunch of sheep in Colorado, but with the weighted point system. Oregon, I think I've got 18 or 19. So I'm close in a lot of places. Depending on what I do, I think I'm going to put in for Colorado this next year. Arizona, on actually your advice and some other people, I might actually hold off with the way the weather and the year's looking.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's dry. We're like here in Phoenix. It's like 100, and I think we're 105 or 108 days now without any moisture at all. And while our fall moisture here doesn't make a huge difference, it's like if this trend continues, going into the draw when we have to apply here in Arizona, second week in February. If nothing changes over, say, the next 30 to 45 days, I mean, it's one of those things. Do you go in like yourself as a non-resident with a bunch of points and throw a big risk out there, just hoping that, we get a late, big late winter moisture or early spring moisture, or do you kind of play it safe and say, well, it's been so dry now for so long, those animals are probably stressed, going into winter. And if we just have an average winter, is that going to affect antler growth? I think the answer is yes. It would make me very nervous. Now, if I was a non-resident that, didn't have many points or, didn't really truly care about it, shooting a trophy bull, I don't think it really matters. But someone in your position, I would dang sure be watching just certainly between now and February, early February when the applications are due, all of a sudden we get, big giant snowstorms one after another. I think we could bail out and it could be a great year. But it's not looking good now. And so it's, I think, one of those things that you just got to watch in all the states you apply, some of those different things that you just got to kind of keep your eye on. And, you wait so long. Elk's such an important animal to you. You don't want to draw on it in Arizona on a drought year. That's for sure.
Exactly. And the thing is, I've got some other options to hunt elk. I'm close to Montana. I think I'll get a tag. Areas that I can draw every couple of years. And so why risk it? What it is. Because Colorado was dry this year. They had a tough time in the unit I want to hunt. They've got some weather now. I actually was upset. I had a hunt planned in Colorado, and on the last day to apply, I was asking the outfitter, I'm like, hey, I was going to pay him a trespass fee for a piece of property, and he didn't have enough guys to pay the lease, so he ended up leasing it out, and I didn't get to go. Well, it ended up being a blessing in disguise. I talked to him, I think, on the second or third day of the fourth season, and it's 62 or 64 degrees, and the area, you're really dependent on some migrating deer, and he's like, man, it's freaking tough. And
yeah, for sure. So, they've had 2 years in a row now where that just really warm falls. Last winter, they're kind of in that Gunnison Basin, they ended up getting some of that snow and were worried a little bit about winter kill. But, it is for sure 2 years in a row in Colorado with virtually no weather.
Right.
So that, that's an interesting dynamic that I think you got to think about in the fact that, there's a good chance that the success was lower and, over the next year or so, there could be some holdover animals that, Colorado might kick out, a couple giants for here and there just because it's been such kind of a tough season the last couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at places like 70, 71, some of those areas where, typically they're still getting, there's a pot full of deer there, but as well as I do, that little bit of weather and that, the cold and the snow, we'll get those bucks down as well as the rut. And,
yeah.
I mean, you look at even Kansas, some of the bucks that they saw, I hunt there every year. And, the rut itself was a little bit, I don't want to say late, but it was definitely different. Definitely different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, getting back to Alaska, the deadline is the 15th. If people want to apply, they need to get a hold of you right away. You guys need to come up with a plan, and is there a way you send them a form so you can have the outfitter agreement? And
Absolutely.
Is there still time?
There is time. Obviously we have until the 15th. I don't want to, if given the choice, I sure don't want to wait until the 15th to do it. But, if a guy's got questions or whatever, I mean, if I can email them the form immediately, they can turn it right back around. And, once that's in place, as well as their license, it's really a pretty simple process. And Alaska tweaked the system a little bit this year. Last year, you had to apply 6 times, even though you're putting the same choice. This year, they've made it, where you can say, yes, I want to apply 6 times, first choice, and done. So it's a little easier on our end, for sure.
Gotcha. So from a processing point of view, it's going to be easier than having to do all 6 applications.
Right. Because last year they had some glitches in it. I'd get to the 4th or 5th one, and I'm doing the same person, obviously the same place or same guide area, or same hunt area, same number, all that. And so you're just going through it. And I bet you probably 10 applications, the system booted me off, and then I would just always have to restart it. But this year, knock on wood, it's gone off without a hitch.
Let's talk about travel a little bit in Alaska. I was actually in Denver. I spend the summers in Colorado, and I flew from Denver to Seattle, Seattle to Anchorage, and then Anchorage into Kenai, where Joe picked Dar and I up there. On most of your hunts, is Anchorage kind of the main hub that everybody goes to or comes to, and then from there, depending on if you're on Kodiak or where you're at, then you take separate flights from Anchorage?
Yes. They can book there's a commuter flight, obviously, that comes down to us, and so people can check their bags and their guns or bows, whatever they may be, all the way through. And essentially all of our hunts, except for Kodiak, will all start there out of Soldotna, Kenai. And so when people, like what a lot of people say, or they look at it, or they ask me, hey, how many days is this hunt? Let's say it's just for sake, a 10-day bear hunt. Well, a 10-day bear hunt is essentially 2 weeks, because let's just, for giggles, let's say the hunt starts on the 20th, and we're going to hunt the 20th to the 29th, the 10 full days. I ask the hunters to get in on the 18th. Unless they can get an early morning flight, I always tell them to get there the day prior. They'll fly out the day prior to the hunt, which would essentially be the 19th. And then they start their hunt on the 20th, hunt 10 full days, fly out of the field the day after, their 10th day, which would be the 30th, and fly home, whether it's the 31st or the 1st. And so when I say, goat hunt is 8 days, it's 8 full days.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys say, well, it's a 10-day hunt, a day travel in, day travel out. But yeah.
And I think that's important to be clear about that kind of stuff. I loved flying in there to Anchorage and then flying right into Kenai, and Joe picked us up, and we came back to your house. You had salmon and halibut cooking, and your house there is awesome. We were fortunate we got to stay with you there, which was really cool, and I know some other hunters get to stay there as well, and then you have got real good lodging there and hotels and stuff nearby. Your trophy room was worth just coming to Alaska to see in itself. I mean, I don't know how many animals you got in that room, but it is unbelievable. There's not a single space on the wall. You got stuff all over the ground of your own, a lot of your own personal trophies. Pretty dang neat. neat stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, my wife said her house is getting full now too. She said no more. So.
Now, you live some of the year in California. I know your wife, she works in the lower 48 and works a lot in California, so you spend quite a bit of time. I know you guys, Southern Cal's going through some big fires right now, but you guys had some catastrophic fires by you as well. You're kind of Napa Valley area?
Yeah, just east of Napa. It was, of course, I'm out on a bear hunt, and she's down here having to freaking evacuate. But, it was definitely, the worst we've seen. I think 8,400 structures lost, and I don't remember the death toll. I think it was up around 40, but it came very close to our house here, and, thank God that it didn't get us. There's a lot of people that sure did.
Now, Frank, the California's been in a huge drought, and I'm just curious how all this plays into it. From what I understand, this last year they had tons and tons of moisture, and I don't want to say they came out of the drought, but they definitely put a crack in or a kink in that drought. Was it the fact that they had so much moisture that there was so much brush, and then all of a sudden then you throw dry conditions on top of that? Is that is that what caused all these fires that are going on now, that they had so much moisture and there's so much, stuff to burn? Or is it just the perfect storm of, the Santa Ana winds and all that different stuff?
I think it's a multitude of them. As far as, what caused them, there's still, the jury's still out. I know that Pacific Gas and Electric had things. There was some arson, that was, I don't know what exactly started them, but I think you're spot on as far as what fueled them. Northern California typically doesn't see the heavy winds like they do, like you mentioned the Santa Ana winds. And, you mentioned that, and that's actually, I think, what saved our house down in California, is that the winds turned, and I think it was, I was 40 to 50 mile an hour north winds. We were joking about it. It wasn't really a joking situation, but we were joking about it, that why can't we get, 40 mile an hour north winds during duck and goose season? And, it really, it is what saved us. Obviously the people to the southwest didn't come out that well, but yeah, back to the point, it's a combination of obviously the fuel, the wind, and, like you said, more or less the perfect storm. And also the fact that there was, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think there was 5 or 6 actual fires going at the same time. And so it's not like, I saw resources coming in from Oregon, Washington, firefighters from Hawaii, all over the U.S. as well as Australia, New Zealand. These guys were spread as thin as they could frickin' be spread. And with a multitude of fires going. And now, literally as we speak, Southern California is dealing with some of the same stuff, and it just, it's catastrophic.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking for sure. Frank, what shows will you be at? Are you going to be at any of the shows forthcoming this year?
I'm not going to have booths at any of them. We're pretty frickin' booked up. I'll be at the sheep show for a day or two. I will be at some of the shows, just not with a booth. Next year, I think I will. I will have a booth at the sheep show. I really like it, and then I'll be at in February. I'll be at the Hunt Expo. I'll be there for a couple days, and what I've done, and it's worked over the years, is not having a booth. But if somebody really is interested in the hunt and wants to sit down and talk, I can meet them. Go out and have a beer or dinner or whatever, lunch, whatever they want to do. And, I think it makes a difference when you get down and sit to talk to people face to face, for sure.
For sure. You're going to come coos deer hunting with us. How long has it been since you've been on a rifle coos deer hunt?
I've never been on a rifle hunt.
Is that right?
Let me rephrase that. Yeah, I've never hunted them with a rifle.
You've hunted them with the bow and shot several with the bow, haven't you? And some good ones, too.
Yeah, I got 6 or 7 with my bow, but I've never rifle hunted, and I'm really looking forward to it. Some people, I don't know, I've changed over the years. There was a point in time where I wouldn't do anything unless it was archery. I kind of snubbed my nose, and and even wrongfully snubbed my nose at some of the animals I'd shot growing up. And now, obviously, I know we all go through phases, but whether I shot it with a bow or a bazooka, the animal deserves the credit. And so yeah.
I'm looking forward to having you down there and hearing some more of the stories of over the years in Alaska and guiding and all that. It should be a great time. We've got some great ranches to hunt, and looking forward to kind of showing you around down there. And it should be a really, really fun time.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I talked to Kevin Lee a couple days ago, and and I told him I was coming.
I didn't know you know him.
Yeah, so Kevin gave me some ammo and said it was one of the best hunts he's ever been on. So,
we had such a fun time with Kevin. We called him Crash Lee because it seemed like everywhere he would go, he was either coming in too hot on his quad and would end up, going ass over tea kettle or crashing, or he's a riot. I really enjoy that guy. He's a lot of fun.
He's a character. His jury's out right now whether he can go or not, but he might apply. If he doesn't apply this year, he's going to apply next year for goats. And
oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool. So. Good for him. That's good. I got a smile on my face just mentioning that guy. When you mention his name, he's just a fun guy to be around. Yeah, I didn't even know you knew him. That's awesome. You know him. That'll make some good campfire stories. We'll have to get old Crash Lee on the satellite phone and have some chat.
That's the first thing he told me was, "Hey, they call me Crash." I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "There's a reason. For some reason, Kevin, that doesn't surprise me."
One time we were glassing something, and I forget exactly what happened. Either I had a good buck or Dar had a good buck, but Kevin had, I forget exactly if he was in Dar's Ranger or my Ranger. Make a long story short, we're like, well, one of us will stay here and watch them. Like, let's go down. And so Kevin, I said, drive that Ranger and, come pick me up or something. And he drives by the side of either my Ranger or Dar's Ranger, and I just remember, not giving enough room, and he just straight down the side. And, the funnest part, though, was his buddies that were with us just giving him such a hard time, and he just big old grin, and of course Dar and I didn't care. We were just laughing. Right. But yeah, it's always fun. That's what's fun to me about Mexico, not only the big bucks and hunting them and all that, but just some of the things that happen that we talk about later and everybody laughs and makes for a good time. So looking forward to having you down, and I'll let you go. I know you're busy. I want to encourage guys to check out your website. Now, you told me before this that any day now the new website should be released, but it's still AlaskaTrophyOutfitters.com. Yep. And that new site should be hitting any day now. And I want to give you a chance to let people know how they can reach you, either by email or by phone, of course on the website as well.
Yeah, there's my email. There's one on the website. You can also do outfitalaska@gmail.com. It's a new one that I'm starting up with this site. It just seems to be a little bit easier. The easiest thing is either call or text 907-252-7413. And yeah, just one of those things. Get on the website, get the email and the phone number. Email me, call, text, and like I said, like we've mentioned multiple times, the deadline's coming up. A lot of guys obviously probably wouldn't be doing stuff for next year, but if they want to start talking about the year after, definitely can help them out.
Right on, buddy. Well, sounds good. Well, thanks for sharing some knowledge here with us, and look forward to seeing you in January. And we're going to have a great time. And thanks for accommodating Dar and I on our goat hunt, and taking us under your wing and feeding us at your house. And we had a great time, and just really appreciate the friendship. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you in January, okay?
No worries. We'll tear them up.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. Take care. God bless.
You bet. You too.